taken outside again into the woods again today, a new woods, this time in County Mayo, now the neighbouring county. Yes, let's talk about the shadow man, and in particular the one with the wide-brimmed hat that appears. It's a fascinating archetype that seems to be appearing all over the world to people in their dreams, in their bedrooms late at night, and so on. What does it mean? Well, I've cracked it. I think I've cracked it. Now, when you watch any YouTube videos or any other web pages about this, it's a relatively new archetype or entity, whatever you want to call it. It only seems to appear since the 1980s at the very earliest. And so this, if you look at the idea of the cultural ideas behind these things often manifest from cultural tropes and cultural memes, and they enter into the collective unconscious, and when they're in the collective unconscious they manifest it as a kind of an entity, which they may be a kind of a psychological archetype that becomes common at certain points. But it's so ingrained now. Even that excellent movie The Babadook even capitalized in on it. And I recently did a painting called the 3 o'clock hero, which was just based on something I had sort of seen in a dream at 3 a.m. and a guy in Australia bought the painting off me. Now he had a top hat, the one I saw, not the wide brimmed hat, but I'm going to explain. This is the wide brimmed hat one in particular, the wide brimmed hat character. Okay, there's a drink called Sandeman Port. Port is a type of fortified wine made in Portugal, and its logo is the shadow man with the wide-brimmed hat. It was first used in advertising going back a long time. The company was, even though it's in Porto in Portugal, the company was founded by a couple of Scotsmen who one of them also designed, or a graphic designer who was also Scottish I believe, was hired to design the Sandeman Don, the character that he's a mysterious character. Starting in the 1960s, a rather brilliant advertising campaign came about where the Sandeman became this kind of figure who was being pursued throughout the vineyard and throughout parts of Portugal. In fact, the 1960s ad I'm showing you right now, I think actually was filmed in the Moorish castle in Sintra. And you can see that the Sandeman, he doesn't exist, he's a phantom. Now this very powerful advertising campaign ran through Britain and Ireland and other countries, but particularly Britain and Ireland, all through the winter months leading up to Christmas. Of course, they wanted people to buy port for an after dinner aperitif with their Christmas liqueur dinner kind of thing, and which that's ideally what port is lovely for. It's a lovely after dinner drink. Now, the ads would be playing non-stop leading up to Christmas at the mysterious shadow figure. Now, Christmas in this part of the world, particularly in the UK and Britain, is very much associated with ghosts and supernatural things. It's almost like I jokingly called it the Presbyterian Halloween. You like Charles Dickens and A Christmas Carol, and you'd have things on the BBC like A Ghost Story at Christmas, but you'd always show on Christmas Eve, and you'd always have tellings of, it's a very English thing to tell ghost stories on Christmas Eve, and you had this kind of thing going on with this kind of Halloween sound type atmosphere, gestating this character called the Don, the mysterious Sandeman. You know, even the name Sandeman, even though it sounds like something like a shadow man, Sandeman. It sounds like the name of an entity. So it was sunk into people's subconscious, and it was from that point on it manifested as an archetype, as this wide-brimmed shadow man, shadow entity that appears at 3 a.m. in people's dreams. And so that's what the origin of this entity is. I'm convinced of it. In fact, I can't think of anything that could even explain it. There's another way of thinking of it, that an entity took upon itself the Sandeman image, and that's another thing as well. That's the thing that's also worth bearing in mind. That the archetype, the advertising image, was so strong and so powerful that an entity took it on. Now that's a whole other topic, and I'm not going to go into that too much now, but for this video I can tell you for a fact, as far as I'm concerned, until better evidence come along, this wide-brimmed hat shadow person that appears in people's dreams, usually around 3 a.m, was gestated in the 1960s, 70s and 80s by the Sandeman companies advertising on TV during the Presbyterian Halloween of the lead up to Christmas Eve. And it's getting really windy here now, but hopefully that hasn't affected the sound too much. So Sandeman port, think about that one.